So you've used this phrase repeatedly that we're not going to sacrifice our state's values. You know, we have several instances in this state. I see the chief of the patrol behind you. He just sat front row at sentencing while a man was sent to prison, an illegal alien who murdered a Washington State Patrol trooper. He could have been deported multiple times, run-ins with law enforcement, but our sanctuary policies shielded him. He went on to kill Trooper Christopher Gadd. How is that in line with our state's values?
Our job is to make sure we're adopting laws that make the appropriate balance. And to keep Washington Working Act, adopted in a bipartisan fashion, by the way, by the state legislature, I think strikes that right balance. If folks violate the law, engage in criminal conduct, they're going to be held accountable for that here in Washington State, and whether you're documented or undocumented. So I think those are consistent with the values of the Keep Washington Working Act, and we'll continue doing that.
A follow-up to the question I asked earlier, and you made the point, if somebody breaks the law, it doesn't matter if they're here illegally or they're citizens, we're going to arrest them, as was the case with the man who killed Trooper Gadd. But the point in the question was, he had had several run-ins with law enforcement in the years that he was living here illegally, where in a non-sanctuary state, they could have cooperated with ICE to remove him from the country. There's no doubt that Christopher Gadd would be alive today if it weren't for our state sanctuary policies. We also had the convicted child rapist who was just released from prison in Spokane out onto the streets, so ICE had to go track him down in the community rather than having an orderly and more safe transfer. So no one's saying, let's go round up people in the fields or whatever it is, but why not cooperate with the federal government and with ICE when it comes to known violent criminals who we could remove from our streets in the interest of public safety?
Yeah, appreciate that. I think I've answered that question. Any other questions that folks have?
Do you see that? Now, this is Bob Ferguson, the governor of Washington State. Trash governor too at that, right? This is why I be like, I don't know, and I'm in Washington State, so I'm like, I don't know why people in Washington act so holier than thou and high and mighty over other people. I don't know how. I'm like, y'all have a trash state, like not even just with your policies, but literally, if you go outside, this is a trash state. This place look ugly. It does. And I was at a point forced to be here. You know what I'm saying? But regardless, you see how he couldn't answer a simple question? Like when dude first answered the question, he said, documented or undocumented. If you commit crimes, you're going to deal with law enforcement, right? Cool. So she came back and said, hold on, but that really didn't answer the question. Because we're talking about illegals who done murdered somebody. Okay. And then the second one, the rapist. So the question is, bro, you didn't answer the question. The question was, if what you just said, you stand by, undocumented or documented, you are going to be have to deal with law enforcement, right? So if that's the case, then why didn't this undocumented individual not get deported? Because they had multiple run-ins with law enforcement. Why is there a catch and release with illegal people, with undocumented individuals? Why is there a catch and release in these sanctuary places? Because then when they finally go off and commit murder of an American citizen, now you want to go deport them. Now you want them in prison for a long time. Now you want to hold them accountable. But when they was breaking when they were breaking smaller crimes than murder, you had no problem with just releasing them back into society, knowing they were undocumented. So when you sit there and then you got another one, and they're not deported until after they do something major, then they're deported. When you commit a crime and you're here legally, you can risk getting deported. When you're here legally and not in one of those sanctuary places, I mean, any other place other than a sanctuary city or state in this country, they run the risk of getting deported, being from another country, committing a crime here legally. But those here illegally, as long as they're in a sanctuary city or state, they're going to get a catch and release as long as there's nothing major. They ain't got to worry about deportation if it's something minor. That is crazy. That is crazy. We used to have a policy where you were illegal, period. You were undocumented, period. You were out of here. You going back to the country you came from. We no longer have that policy and haven't had it for some years now. We have, and now when they're trying to enforce it, every time we get a president that tries to enforce it, depending on what side they're on, it'll get welcomed. Like when Obama did it, it was welcomed because he was on that side. He was on the left side. He was on the left. So it got welcomed and everybody was on the same page. So obviously he not getting no pushback from the right because that's what they want. Obviously. But then when you get Trump in, somebody, or you get somebody on the right into office, then it's, oh, no, it's the worst thing ever. So that's why I said, I wonder if we get another Democratic president in office, if that Democratic president also wants to do mass deportations, will the people still fight and still, you know what I'm saying, want to fight ICE and want to protest this new Democratic president? Or are the people going to shut up and go along with it now? But you're gonna look like a hypocrite if you just go along with it. You're gonna look like a hypocrite if you go along with it now. So we're just gonna have to see what happens. But as you see, he couldn't answer a simple question. Why is this person here undocumented? And it took for them to commit this crazy major crime of murder to finally be held accountable, because they weren't held accountable when they were doing smaller crimes, even though they were undocumented. Didn't matter to you. This is the same governor. This is why I don't understand like people on the left when it comes to Washington State, because they love Bob Ferguson so much. He won't even answer why he won't work with law enforcement, right? Well, cool, because you know what? A lot of people in Washington State don't want to work with law enforcement. They don't like law enforcement. So they have no problem with him saying he don't want to work with law enforcement. They think law enforcement is the worst thing ever. They want to be able to do whatever they want to do in this state and let it be Grand Theft Auto. Do whatever you want. No consequences. That's what they want here. And then they act like they're good people and they're the best people and smart people. Like, people in Washington State are not that bright. They literally sit here and elected this man, Bob Ferguson, in, was so happy for him and everything. I'm like, and then dude decides last year he proposed the $9 billion in new taxes last year, and people still cheered him doing it. And then they open up their bills and open up to renew their tabs and stuff, open up the excise part, the excise tax then like doubled. And now why is my excise tax like $200 now to renew my tabs? Look who you happy. Look who you championed. You championed this dude who put in $9 billion in new taxes. That's why. That's why. He put in $9 billion in new taxes on you. That's why this tax is higher than you expected it to be. That's why. I'm like, don't sit here and complain. You wanted this dude in here. Now he can't even answer a simple question. When they're sitting there at like these undocumented people are more important, that's a spit in the face of people who came here legally and are documented, and it's a spit in the face of Americans born in America. It's a spit in the face to Americans, because people like him and the state of the left, how they're dealing and how they're acting right now in the current state, they're acting as if undocumented people are more important than Americans are. That's how they're acting. I don't care what nobody on the left says. That's how they're acting. They're acting as if undocumented people are more important than Americans. In America, that's how they're acting. Y'all let me know what y'all think about it in the comment section. Like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Till next time, I'm out. I feel like I'm good on my own. Don't need nobody beside me.